Welcome to Pneuma Godcast. I'm your host, Norman Brown. Today, before we get into this subject, first of all, I want you to subscribe to the channel. Make sure when this video is done or while you're watching the video, give it a like. Make sure you do it before you even leave, because before you even really start this video, make sure you like the video, because you'll forget if you don't do it now. So like, subscribe, make sure you comment below. Especially let me know if there's anything you want me to talk about in the future that that you would like to hear about. All right, I want to hear your thoughts. So today, the subject I'm going to be talking about is abuse. Now, what made me start to think about this was the fact that I was watching a show about a crime that occurred. I'm just going to call it that. Someone deleted somebody else. I'm going to say it that way. They took the life of someone, okay? But the thing that really got to me was the fact that I've watched so many different shows like this, and it is the basic same pattern every time. It's the same pattern. You know, one thing I've learned about spirits is that they don't change the way they operate. They do it the same way all the time. There's no guessing when it comes to a spirit. They have a pattern. And once you find out the pattern, then you can figure out, okay, this is what is happening. Now, also, when you have discerning of spirits, then you can discern the spirit you're dealing with as well. So, you know, but the Bible says we are not ignorant of the devices of Satan, of Satan's devices. You know what I'm saying? And what that should mean to you is that as a believer, that you've been studying the word so much that when Satan comes around, you know his ways. Why? Because it's like dealing with counterfeit money. You don't know counterfeit money in the banking system by messing with counterfeit money all the time. You know it by the fact that you know what's real, and you touch the real money all day long, and then all of a sudden you feel this fake money, and you're like, wait a minute, something's wrong with this. Let me see. Boom, boom. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't have that thing that's supposed to have there. Okay, yeah, this is fake. Boom. Throw it away. That's basically how we should know when we're dealing with Satan. Now, I do know there's people that used to be witches, warlocks, things like that, and because of that, they have a certain type of, I guess you could say, heightened awareness or whatever of those things. So they didn't get that awareness from spending time with the Lord. They got it from being in that, a part of that so long that when they came out of it and then they started experiencing it again, they were like, oh, wait a minute. This is definitely demonic. This is not of God. I need to get out of here. I need to stop dealing with this person, or whatever the case may be. So here's the point. Abuse is the same way. And one thing that I've seen over the years is that abusers do things a certain way, and it's just not going to change. One thing I want to say off the top, and I'm saying this as fatherly advice to young men, young women, and anybody else who hasn't, you know, maybe you've been through abuse, you really still haven't gotten it. It hasn't clicked for you yet that things are not going to change in that situation. Once you discover that a person is an abuser, get out of there. Period. And I'm saying this, I hope that you didn't marry a person like that. But if you did marry someone like that, you need to get out of that relationship. It will never change while you're with them. The bottom line is they need to have time if there's ever going to be a change in their life. And I'm trying to say this in such a way where I'm not going to make it sound like that person can't ever change. But let me say it this way. There's a couple different ways to go about this, and I'm trying to be balanced about how I say this. Some of you might be in a situation where, okay, you need to just separate yourself from whoever that spouse is, and you need to let them know strongly, in strong words, that they will change or there will be a divorce. And that's all there is to it. Some of you have that grace to do that. I don't, just to be honest with you. I don't have that grace. I would never have that grace for an abuser. I have been through a certain type of abuse before. Of course, it wasn't physical abuse, but I've been verbally abused. And it's one of those kind of things where that person was very fortunate that I'm a man of God. Because if I was not a man of God, any other man that was not a man of God would have done stuff that they probably would have regretted later. But that woman definitely would not have been talking like that anymore. I'm going to say it that way. Now, it's unfortunate that people are out here that, you know, they think that when they're in a relationship, and, you know, nowadays they call it toxic. Now, I'm going to tell you something right now. That word toxic is being thrown around so loosely these days that it's almost becoming like the boy that cried wolf. You know, you hear it so much. You hear this boy crying wolf, and then nobody's seeing the wolf, and then next thing you know, there is a wolf and nobody cares anymore because he lied so much. That's how this word toxic is being used today. It's being thrown around as a word to spark conversation, I guess, trigger people, whatever the case may be. And I would say that it's been working because, you know, all you gotta do is say, you know, toxic masculinity and, you know, stupid things like that. And these words are just being used so loosely that there is no real, I'm going to say there is no real set definition of what that really means anyway. You know, what is toxic masculinity? What about toxic femininity? You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's the thing that, you know, with this world that we live in today in America, I would say in the West, in those places that have been influenced by America to a strong degree, words like this and phrases like this are being used to silence men in particular. When you say toxic masculinity, what's toxic? What makes it toxic? Being masculine. What makes it toxic? I'm going to leave that out there for you to think about, because this is one of those things that we're hearing so much, but do people actually analyze what they're hearing? Are people analytical enough with their minds that they are saying to themselves, I wonder what toxic masculinity really means. What do they really mean by this word? Because when I hear it, I see it as they're just trying to say, if you are masculine, you are toxic. That's what I hear when I hear that word. When I hear that phrase, that's what it makes me think immediately. And if I think that way, I'm sure many, many people out there are thinking the same way. But getting back to what I was saying about the abuse. You know, it's one thing to say God cannot heal a person who has abused people and who has been abused. But let me just say it like this. I would especially say this for the abuser. Typically, whoever has been abused will become an abuser. And they are an abuser by proxy, in the sense of, okay, let's say it like this. If I grew up poor and that's all I ever saw, then I think poverty is normal. And then I'm going to handle every situation that I'm in as an impoverished person with a poverty mentality, because that's all I grew up with. That's all I know. That's what sounds normal and looks normal to me. But that's because I've never been introduced to anything different. I've never been introduced to anything better. So it is very possible that if I am coming out if I'm coming out of a situation where I've been abused, and then I'm trying to get out of that place of being abused to being a better person or whatever, I can very well become an abuser because I was abused and it's normal to me. And maybe I didn't even recognize that until later. And when I later recognized it, then all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, I need to change this. I need to do something different. But initially I could be in a situation where it doesn't seem like something's wrong with that. It doesn't seem abnormal. It doesn't seem out of place. That is how an abuser, or the one who was abused, can become an abuser. Now, what I will tell you is this. Every single time that I saw a situation, whether it be on TV or in person, when I saw a situation when that kind of behavior was going on, abuse between two people, but it's coming from one to the other, I've never seen it get better. That's my personal experience. I've never seen it get better. What I have seen and heard is that it got worse. And it got worse and worse and worse until somebody ends up dead. It's just the way it typically goes. I've watched so many shows about people's lives being taken by someone who abused them. And it always was, well, they're yelling at each other. They're throwing stuff around in the apartment or in the house or whatever. Or this person's controlling them and saying, you can't go here, you can't do this, and I'm not going to allow you to do this, that, and the third and everything. They don't allow them to go around family, friends, all this kind of stuff. Anytime you see that type of behavior going on, get away from that person ASAP. Immediately. Don't give them a chance. Don't even attempt to help them to change. Get away from them. And I'm going to tell you something. This is where it really gets bad. And I've basically only seen this between men to women when it comes to that kind of abusing situation. If it's the woman to the man, it is definitely bad, but it's almost like it's a different kind of bad, in the sense that, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't have stats that show what this is like or whatever, like what's the specifics of this, but what I'm saying is that you'll find that it seems like when it's a man abusing a woman, whether it be verbally or physically, and or through they're trying to manipulate them, control them, make sure they don't go around friends and family. Anytime you see all that kind of stuff where a woman doesn't come around her family anymore and whatnot, there's abuse going on, most likely. There's a man that's controlling her. And if it's a woman, obviously, I'm just going to say it like this. I know I know that anybody who's watching Pneuma Godcast, you probably already know where I stand on this anyway, but let's just make it clear. God is against same-sex in anything that is a relationship, unless it's a friendship. If it's anything that's intimate, like I'm talking about, like they supposedly are seeing each other, they are intimately involved with each other, sexually involved with each other, whatever like that, or they trying to get married, God is completely against it. There is no leeway. There is no compromise. There is no gray area. There is no in between. I don't care if you call yourself a transformer or not. You are what God brought you into this world as. And with that being said, if you are with anything other than the opposite gender, any type of person other than the opposite gender, trying to have a relationship that is sexual, marriage related, whatever, you are wrong completely. There is no justification. You cannot back yourself up with anything.